Welcome! In a previous video I did an overview of what I think about out-of-body experience phenomena and how important this type of altered state of consciousness is for personal development. I said that personally it is common for me to feel vibration, energy points or chakras aligned and activated, and other subjectivities that I find extremely interesting, which precede a proper exit to the astral plane. So today I want to talk about those subjectivities that have to do with the subtleties of the energy body, be it the activation of chakras, Kundalini, vibrations, sounds, and so on. I'm going to read some transcripts from my dream diary. These are 4 examples of what can happen to people who try an astral projection or a awake-induced lucid dream. These are my typical experiences where I got deep into this altered state of consciousness but didn't got enough courage to go forward with the proper exit, with the separation. This can happen. Sometimes a panic overrides the initial plan to exit the physical body because of the realism of the situation, or sometimes a strange lack of motivation emerges, as if it were an imposed blockage, a kind of hypnosis by something or someone, process or entity, which I believe either way is as if it supervises sleep to prevent the existence of these other forms of perception from being known. Be that as it may, here are some examples of this type of subjectivities. Here are some entries of my dream diary. This account shows the intensity of the vibrations and the inability to move forward because of them. Tonight I decided to go to bed early. The noise in the next room disturbed me, but I continued to do the intended astral projection technique. After feeling myself in the phase where the hypnagogic images appear, I focused on the chakra in the middle of the forehead. To force the sensation of chakra activation, I roll my eyes up with each exhalation. With each inhalation, I relax my eyes and body, enhancing the sensation of the body sinking. At a certain point, I feel my body sinking deeper and as if to slide. Now I visualize a generic figure of a body above mine, as if it were a rough copy of me. It is located along the length of my body, horizontal and parallel with my physical body lying still and facing upwards. I remain focused on the breath, the point in the middle of the forehead, between the eyes and a little above. Instead of sinking into bed, now I want to get up, to levitate, to come out, face up. I still don't feel light. On the contrary, there's always a feeling of sinking, of heaviness, as if the force of gravity got stronger, and the bed is as if it was quicksand. The sensation of faltering back and forth sets in. Then I started to hear my ears as if they were half covered because the noise in the room seemed to be more thick and less clear. It was as if I had cotton in my ears. I knew I would hear the sound that always happens, a kind of tinnitus, but at a much louder volume. I persisted in the technique, continuing to visualize myself a foot in front of me. My abdomen felt like it swelled and heated up, and I also knew that this would give rise to vibrations. I felt all out of place, dislocated. I strengthened my intention by making a slight mental pressure to shift my astral body, focusing on the body I visualized, exhaling and rolling my eyes upwards as if looking at the forehead chakra. The sound of the ears, like a subtle tinnitus, intensifies. The best analogy I have for this sound that accompanies the separation of the astral body is like the noise of a boiling pot, and in more intense cases, like the sound of a train passing over me. I also began to feel vibrations all over my body. Something indescribable and intense enough to cause panic. It feels, I imagine, like an electrocution. It's not painful, it's just something that is almost impossible to bear. It is as if it were a powerful energy coursing through one of the bodies, or both bodies, the astral and the physical. In fact, the most accurate description is to say that it's as if the perception of the harmonic interference of consciousness itself with the different bodies that manifest in different planes of existence. Well, this is just my theory of what I think happens. Now, with the sound and vibrations at their peak, almost unbearable, I remember saying to myself, "Be cool, this is a good day to die." Because an out-of-body experience is a small death. Sleep is a small death. The dream is a small death. But as usual, I didn't have the courage to continue, and eventually I went into a blackout. In this following account, I show how perceptions of the laws of the physical world influence us through mental concepts on the astral plane. In this case, the force of gravity. And it also talks about another astral artifact, the cocoon. I remember I was dozing, lying on my right side. I was already half awake, but it was still dawn. I've been having a lot of motivation lately to astral project, and I've been trying every night for the last 2 weeks. So, tonight, I had the instinctive intention to get out of the body. I prepared myself to do the technique and turned to my left side, where my body is naturally more comfortable. As I was already in a state very close to total relaxation of the physical body, it was relatively easy to get to feel the vibrations and the sound. But then I thought that since I was lying on the bed crookedly, it would somehow affect my reinsertion into the physical body when I was to return. Of course, this doesn't make any sense. It's another one of those obstacles that appear to hypnotically take away the desire, as if by design. My physical body was almost paralyzed, but I still managed to wake up enough to turn around to face upward. Then I tried again, and once again I managed to get to the vibration state. Now I could, with all my intentions, try to float out of my body. Even with all the distraction caused by the intense sound and the almost unbearable vibrations, I visualized myself 1 foot above me. With the breathing technique, I immediately started to feel like I was floating, but I found the cocoon snag. A kind of cocoon that surrounds me every time I do a wake-induced lucid dream technique. It's like thousands of rubber bands around me that hold me to the physical body. Because of this structure, it forces me to be creative in order to separate myself. What is the hardest way to separate 2 pieces that are held together by rubber bands? A parallel split is the most difficult, but a split with a rotation at the center of the objects is the easiest. This time I tried, instead of standing up like I was a Count Dracula, I tried with instead a horizontal axis rotation on the bottom of my feet. I only lifted half of my body, the top. So, with a lot of intention and focus, I managed to lift my head first. But the rest of the trunk was very difficult. I felt that the rubber bands around me were holding me back, but also the force of gravity. For some reason, I felt it much stronger. Then, furious with my frustration, I raised my astral arms, and with all my strength I threw fire, or whatever it was, from the palms of my hands, and so I managed to get my torso from the waist up inclined at 60 degrees. I was relieved, but when I stopped making the mental effort to float out, I started leaning to the left and falling like I was a feather, or like I was sinking in a pool of water when there's no air in my lungs. Afterwards, this I find amusing and funny. I thought that my main objective this night was to touch the ground with my astral hand. And once I touched it, I thought, alright, I can sleep now. As if that was the purpose all along. In this next third report, I tell what the false awakening was like. I woke up at dawn and decided to try to do an astral projection. I let myself sleep for a few moments, and when I woke up again, I felt the vibrations. I felt myself swaying back and forth, and also the sound. But this time, all these phenomena were very subtle. I decided to exit the physical body, and it felt ridiculously easy. I never panicked. I got out of bed as if it were morning to start the day. I even sat on the edge of the bed. Then I thought, oh man, I'm not leaving the house in boxer underwear. That will be bad. Oh, it's better not to go out. It feels so good to be in bed. I think that in the course of the astral projection, I must have lost lucidity. I guess that my consciousness was emptying itself of the vehicle that is the astral body. Thus, the astral body was manifesting with some autonomy, perhaps with the help of the subconscious programming. When I was sitting on the edge of the bed, I think that I was no longer lucid. That is why I thought to not go further with the exploration. I didn't thought by the time I sat up that I was still having an out-of-body experience. But in truth, I still was in the astral plane. This was a false awakening. It seems that the unconscious, the subconscious, or another process or entity has many tricks to elude my will to explore the astral plane of existence. It's funny and at the same time profound to think about this and to ask, why does this happen? Why do these obstacles exist? So now this fourth and final account is about the sensory impression along meridians and the rise of a very strong force or energy, which I believe the term Kundalini refers to. I arrived fairly quickly to the hypnagogic state. I felt expanded as if bloated, and my physical body became increasingly paralyzed. At the same time that I felt my consciousness changing more and more, I felt internal movement inside the cocoon that was my physical body, and by now that was already asleep. The vibrations and sound were always present, but this time I focused more on the lower abdomen rather than the point in the middle of the forehead. The abdomen started to heat up a lot and my heartbeat accelerated. I remained calm and relaxed with a present breath. I inhaled faster, and when exhaling, I did it more slowly to feel myself dilate even more. I got to dilate so much that I could see the details of the entire room through the volume that somehow my aura was occupying. Energy points began to be more and more noticeable. First, the point in the middle of the forehead, then the throat, heart, and plexus chakras. The abdomen I felt very dilated and hot. It was the first time that I felt all these energy points connecting with an undeniable impression, a strong pulse, heat, and movement. Sometimes I noticed that the hypnagogic images were colors and geometric shapes. While this whole intense process was taking place, I witnessed the hypnagogic imagery progressively transform into a dreamlike quality. I made an effort not to go into a blackout and fall asleep. I ended up waking up slightly, and then I thought about how good it is to live, and so I decided to thank God, but I didn't know how. So I thought the best thing to do is to embrace the world, and then I had the strange feeling and the vibrations and sound started again. Again my heart raced, and this time my breathing became uncontrollable. Seconds later, I felt an explosion in my lower back, and as if a shot, energy rises, an impression that shudders through me. I panicked because how intense it was. I waked myself up physically. I sat on the bed, only partially covered in blankets. I was still feeling a sensation on the skin as if it contracted and expanded. When I closed my eyes, lights also appeared. I don't know how or why, but I had a feeling that I was capable of making a premonition. As you see, trying astral projection is actually having much more than just a lucid dream. Pursuing astral projections is pursuing other spiritual phenomena. Personally, I think that wake-induced lucid dream techniques are useful for exploring other altered states of consciousness and even certain types of sensory experiences that we can classify as perceptions of internal movement, energies, and other subjective impressions. So these were some stories of mine, some of my dream diary entries that I wanted to share with you. I hope these reports are inspiring for you to take an interest and to give it a try. For those of you who have had out-of-body experiences and other related sensory experiences, please write them down in the comments below. Also, give this video a like if you enjoyed it. I will make more videos about astral projections. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. Be well.